Welcome back to another episode of the No Food Rules News. If you are new, this is where I round up just different food, nutrition, pop culture, anything related to diet culture, body image stories from the past week, and we chat about them. I'm not going to lie, you guys, I'm having a morning. And it was funny because I typically historically hate Thursdays. And I was just thinking, I was like, I like Thursdays now. We're doing this. I have some other things that I've been doing every Thursday. And today it's just been a morning. I'm gonna try not to keep looking down to make sure that my camera is still capturing all this. I'm not the most tech savvy gal, and I'm just gonna have to break down and stop to the actual camera store this weekend and be like, can you please help me? I've tried to figure this out on my own. Oh my gosh. And then I just realized one of my rings broke, so that's great, but we're gonna turn it around. I'm so sorry to start this on such a damper, but I'm not gonna lie, you guys, I was like bawling my eyes out like 5 minutes ago. It's just a little reality for you, right? We all just maybe you see like a happy smiling face. 5 minutes earlier, I was literally bawling my eyes out. Not gonna lie, I also threw a little bit of a tantrum. Not my best moment, but hey, we've all got them, right? And hopefully the people at the camera store can help a girl out. So like I said, guys, this is the No Food Rules News. If you are new, this is what we do here. I hope you like it. These are very fun, casual episodes. These are typically longer format where we just get chatty, and I want you to either grab a cup of coffee or get a snack and just kind of have this on in the background. Why do I ever pretend like I'm going to drink my coffee? I always talk too much. But these are just like fun, casual episodes, keep you up to date on things, give you some content to watch. We'll sprinkle in some learning along the way. Yeah, we'll get into it, guys. So the first story that we have today is story number 1 says inside Kourtney Kardashian's out of touch daily routine. Star reveals she avoids traumatizing alarms, has positive playlist for school runs, and uses 2 personal trainers to keep fit so she doesn't get bored. Now, the article says Kourtney Kardashian was slammed by fans as out of touch after sharing an insight into her morning routine with husband Travis Barker over the weekend. The 44-year-old expectant shared a new link to a Poosh article titled How to Become a Morning Person as she offered lifestyle tips to her fans. So here is a little bit of what her daily routine typically looks like. So 7 a.m., wake up to a peaceful alarm. 7:10 a.m. collagen and tea. 8:30 school drop off with positive playlist. 9:45 workout with different trainers, and 10:30 lunch. She states some other things, but we're focusing on the morning here. And so far I'm like, okay, like why are people so up in arms over this? Am I defending the Kardashians? I don't know. Okay. So if so far I'm like, I don't get it. Like it seems fine. Um the personal trainer aspect, I mean, is a nice touch. A lot of people, like if you can afford it, go for it. A lot of people can't. I do think with that, it's kind of changing just with like social media. You could do like different YouTube videos and stuff, just any kind of variety. It doesn't have to be a personal trainer. Um, but where the backlash came from was the timestamp of the photo she shared was from 11:05 a.m. and she posted a photo of her and Travis having coffee. I think it was in bed. Now, I think that's what people it's such a clickbaity article because I don't think there's anything wrong with her morning routine. We can talk about that. And when I first heard like traumatizing alarms, I thought she was going to be one of those people that was like, I just wake up naturally with the sun and I don't, live by alarms. Your girl has an alarm that goes off at 4:30 in the morning with a right? By choice. Like I am an start my day at ungodly hours. I'm a huge morning person. I love the morning. I'm not a night owl. And so at first I thought she was gonna be one of those people, but it's just she doesn't like it sounds like she just doesn't like the like alarms. She wakes up with a peaceful alarm. Doesn't necessarily say like that's the sun. I was also expecting it to be like, oh, she does like whenever I feel like I hear specifically in like the business space. So as an entrepreneur, I'm always like thinking about that stuff. And I swear so many people are always like, I do my cold plunge in the morning with my sauna and my UV lights. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, that is just like, that is kind of like sharing or recommending people do that is kind of out of touch. Based on the article title, I thought it was giving Gwyneth. Like when she shared her whole like what I eat in a day thing and she like did like dry brushing for 2 hours and all this stuff. That's what I was expecting to read, but this doesn't sound like that bad. Honestly, it kind of is giving when you don't like someone and no matter what they do, whatever they do is going to be wrong. That's kind of like what the title feels like to me. I think in terms of her actual daily routine, the collagen part of it, collagen's not bad. This could be a whole topic that we could go into is the science behind collagen. There is actual studies behind it. I take it in the morning. I mix it with what am I trying to say? One of those not liquid water enhancers, like a pink lemonade packet, like a Crystal Light thing, and I drink that in the morning. Because if you've been around, I also absolutely hate plain water, so I always use those. But everything else, I mean, it doesn't seem too crazy. So I just kind of thought that was like, don't always believe all of the titles. So there you go. I defended Kourtney Kardashian. I think your morning routine seems fine, right? And also for that picture, like I'd have to go back and see if she said like we just woke up. But also like sometimes you wake up at 7 and sometimes you wake up at 11, right? Like not that big of a deal. Anywho, I thought that one was way overblown. Story number 2 says excessive social media use may has many, gosh, I cannot talk today, you guys. I apologize. Excessive social media use has many of the same effects as substance abuse, experts say. So the article says the average American spends nearly 2.5 hours per day on social media. I would have to look. I don't even know how to find my activity. There's probably a lot. And that number has more than doubled for teens, studies have shown. For many people, the reliance on social media can feel like much like an addiction. And many experts believe that's exactly what it is. Someone in the article says, I am insanely addicted to my phone. My screen time is disgusting and I'm ashamed. It's upwards to 5 hours per day. It creates the worst case scenario for my anxiety in my brain and makes me overthink things. They say that one of the biggest red flags is when the excessive use of social media platforms interferes with other daily activities. Negative impacts from overuse are particularly problematic for the youth. Brain development continues into our 20s, and the frontal cortex, responsible for planning behavior, is the last area to develop. So essentially, we know screen time is bananas, right? I will also be like the first one. I have recently set more boundaries with social media. Someone actually asked me on Instagram, they're like, have you been coming on social media less? And honestly, like, I was like flattered because I was like, oh, like I love that you love watching my content. But then it also kind of gets like how reliant we get on social media and how um just like engulfed we are in other people's lives. It was kind of like I had two emotions there when I received that comment. But I do love. And the thing is like I'm still posting every single day multiple like multiple things. Um but we do have such, and here's the thing with this article is so they don't say it's an addiction. They say, what are the exact words that they use? Some of the same effects. I think it is very, very important to note here, even when we talk about the concept of food addiction, It is not the same as comparing it to abuse, and I think that's a really unfair comparison to make because the actual physiological mechanisms are not the same. I get what they mean. They feel like it's all consuming and controlling, and that's where they talk about kind of like the effects of it. But this article is kind of making me think like the same thing with like sugar addiction. Sugar addiction truly does feel like an addiction. The mechanisms, it is not the same as, a substance abuse problem by any means. That would be very similar to saying I can get addicted to petting my dog. I'm looking at Theo on the couch. It's anything that can release like positive endorphins or dopamine, you want more of that, right? So anything that we feel feels good or is positive has reinforcing behavior, which a lot of these apps are made to have that. We can feel that way, but I don't think it's a fair comparison. To kind of have it to do it like that. And I felt like my thoughts on that were very similar to when we talk about like sugar addiction. So just thought that was kind of an important one to note. They say it can mimic the symptoms of behavioral addictions and substance abuse disorders, but on a smaller scale. And I mean, like I said, I have definitely noticed myself I had just become like so I feel like I go in spurts. Like it's kind of like a ebb and flow. And I don't think that's like wrong. Like, oh, I relapsed into social media. Everything's going to ebb and flow. And I think we keep tabs on our behaviors. And when something's not serving you, then you can kind of set boundaries around it. I did think it was really interesting where they talked about the development of the brain. I promise I won't get too sciencey here, you guys. But about the brain not developing, I cannot imagine what it would be like to grow up with social media today. Like, I can't imagine because you are so influenced. I know how much comparisonitis I get from being on social media. I literally cannot imagine if had that growing up. Like, I felt like I was in the era in like high school years of MySpace and Facebook, and I had AIM, in middle school. What was your AIM name? So I was talking to a friend about this the other day. My first email is funnier. It was crispy bacon. I really liked bacon. I made bacon the other day. It just made me think of it, so that's where that came from. And then my screen name was City Sprinter 10 because I thought I was really fast at running. I'm not slow, but I don't know. I'm not like a track star. But I just can't imagine like if that I felt like impacted me. And also like with a lot of that stuff, you were comparing yourself to your peers more likely. Like, yes, there was magazines and stuff, but I feel like kids today I don't even know if I can put it into words because it's just like such a different life that kids are living today. I think about myself compared to them now, and I'm like, I was not cool enough for this. Like, I would not. Yeah. Anywho, the article also gives some tips for like quote unquote detoxing. Again, we're using a lot of diet culture language here. But one thing they have some tips where they say like ideally, I do appreciate this. They say ideally you could just be like, okay, I'm going to stop using social media. That is unrealistic, right? So they recommend taking like more baby steps, setting boundaries around it. And I do think social media can be used for good. Hello, we are connecting right now. But one thing that's really helped me is moving around the apps on my phone. You can like download like limits to like physically like or actually set boundaries for yourself. But what I like to do is if I notice I'm going to an app super often, I will change where that app is on my screen because I'll be opening an app and I'm like, I don't even it's just like my thumbs have habits and they just open the app when I like sit down or whatever. So moving those things around can be really helpful. So give it a try if you feel like, yeah, I'm kind of struggling with the social media usage too. Okay. Story 3 is a really sad one, you guys. So story 3 says truth behind the starvation diet of vegan influencer Zahana Dahart revealed after death. Sorry if I butchered her name. It says the 39-year-old Russian national who had millions of followers across TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram was living in Malaysia when she died in late July. While her cause of death has yet to be officially determined, many have linked her diet to her death, suggesting a serious eating disorder caused her to unwittingly starve. The article states that she ate a completely raw vegan diet for the last 4 years of her life, composed mostly of just fruit and sunflower sprouts. Where many are blaming her vegan diet for her death, there are so many ways that you can comply with a vegan diet to get adequate nutrients. And someone in the article also says, and an important quote said, celebrity and Instagram nutrition is so powerful because often it involves an attractive looking person who has a whole brand around their way of eating. It can be so magnetic to people because many of us feel the pressure to be thin and fit. In this case, that's still the case in modern society, unfortunately. Exactly why getting your nutrition information from professionals is so incredibly important. I could not agree more. And I think that it's whenever someone leads with their body or what they look like and how they eat, it is a subconscious marketing tactic to say, like, if you eat like this, you will look like this. And I try very hard not to make my content about my body. I do realize I do fit the thin ideal, and I do have a way of eating, but I think it's really important to understand, like, are you using your body as a marketing tactic? And a lot of people are. And the reality is, like, well, I've said this a million times, like, we all have different shoe sizes. We all have different body shape sizes. We have German Shepherd dogs. We have Chihuahuas. We can't necessarily decide what our body is going to look like and have that be the healthiest thing, nor necessarily have that even happen. You could starve a German Shepherd all you want, but it's not going to look like a Chihuahua, right? So there's that part of it. But I just think this is really heartbreaking. And in terms of like the vegan part of it, you can absolutely be vegan and follow no food rules and have it be 100, have it be healthy. There are some considerations that you need to take into account for nutrition. But I do think that in the thing with those things is it's really understand I'm like stumbling over my words. They talk about orthorexia which is like an obsession with eating healthy. The thing is, not everyone it comes from the standpoint of like, I want to be as thin as possible. Some people with so like anorexia versus orthorexia, where it's like, I want to be super, super thin, or I want to be super, super healthy. Any extremes are not great. And the thing is, a lot of times people really do believe that their way of eating is the healthiest. And it's just, like I said, this is just really heartbreaking. I think the biggest takeaways from this are make sure you get your nutrition information from a credible source online and not just follow influencers. This is also the second story we've had in a week about the other one was a fad diet. So it was the last week's episode. We talked about someone being hospitalized from doing the 75 hard. This one wasn't necessarily a fad diet. I do believe it was probably her actual beliefs. But I think it just goes back to following extremes is just never going to be a good, as unsexy as moderation and balance are. Those have stood the test of time, right? And they're what we always talk about. But just get your information from trusted sources online, right? Registered dietitians like myself have to do lots of training. But even with that, it's important to understand, is the person that I'm taking information from, are they the right person for me? I also had a conversation about this with someone the other day about how it's important to understand if the person that you are, whether it's a doctor, whether it's a dietitian, if they're the right person for you. Because just because someone has credentials doesn't mean that they're going to be the best person to serve you, right? If someone is, because dietitians obviously have different views, right? I'm a non-diet dietitian. I don't believe in having food rules. I believe that they're way more harmful than they are helpful. There are other dietitians who disagree. So you might be like, Well, just the credentials themselves don't necessarily mean anything. And you're right. But I think that's a great place to start because then you can decide, does this person have similar views as me? And is their content kind of serving me, right? But to get those credentials, we have to go through a lot of training and education. But like I said, that doesn't also just doing that qualify someone. So it's layered, right? I feel very, very sad for this person and also their community and just it's the second story we've had, and that's not been great, but yeah, just a bummer. Okay, story number 4 is, do you really need 10,000 steps a day? Study reveals how many to live longer. So it says the study published Wednesday in the European Journal of Preventative Cardiology, it found that at least 3,967 steps a day reduce the risk of dying from any cause, while 2,337 steps a day reduce the risk of dying from cardiovascular diseases. It says our analysis indicates that as little as 4,000 steps a day are needed to significantly reduce death from any cause, and even fewer to reduce risks from specifically cardiovascular disease. So I think that moving your body is great. And it does also say that, according to the World Health Organization, insufficient physical activity is the 4th leading risk factor for death. About 3.2 million deaths each year are due to not enough physical activity. So, moral of the story here, movement is great, right? Our bodies love movement, no doubt about that. I do think that a couple important notes, like I said, movement's great. 10,000 steps a day is kind of just made up. It was arbitrarily chosen. And then from there, a lot of studies have been done like off of the 10,000 steps a day. But moral of the story, moving your body can be great. It is not something that you have to do. These are averages, right? Even the studies that the data that they pulled this from are not like this person did this every single day. Last week, we had a story about bed rotting. Some days you need those, right? Some weeks you need those. And I can talk about my thoughts on like activity trackers, but think about like, do I move my body most days in some way? I think that's a really great way to look at it. And it's going to be different for everyone. Someone just posted in the society, hula hooping was one of their big things that they liked. Someone else might like kayaking. Someone else might clean the house. That can be activity, right? So getting ourselves outside the box, that I have to go outside for a walk or I have to go for a run, movement in general is typically our bodies like it, right? And I think that too, something to think about is when I think about our society, there's so many things to think about with our society, but we have such a fast-paced life, and I feel like it only gets faster and faster, and it can kind of get to the point where it feels like a privilege to be able to have the time to move your body. So another thing that I talk about a lot is when you're looking at studies, it's important to look at correlation versus causation. Like, was it the fact that these people walked more, the walking did it, or do these people also have more time in their schedule to move their body? So then maybe they have less stress also, or they have a less demanding schedule, so they're more likely to make it to doctor's appointments. Or if someone like, I have a busy schedule, I do have a walking pad. I love my walking pad. I can link it in the description. But that it wasn't, I got like one of the cheaper ones, but it was still a decent chunk of change, right? So that is a privilege to be able to afford that. If you can afford that, can you also afford to purchase more produce, right? Do you not live in a food desert? There's so many things to think about here. So I really still don't recommend getting hung up on like, I have to get like 4,000 steps a day. Some days you're going to, just want a bed rot, and that's fine. It's, again, just looking at it more of like, okay, just confirming our bodies like movement, and that can look any way to you. And I would also say that this is something I also talk about in the society when we talk about movement is if you are right now listening to this and you're like, I don't move at all. I don't move at all. Don't expect yourself to like literally start moving all the time every day. it is practice. We have to ease into it. If you haven't practiced something in a while, you're probably not going to be as good at it or be able to do it as long, right? That's okay. Making sure that you're setting sustainable goals is important. And then, as always, too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing. A good rule of thumb is, would I feel guilt, stress, or anxiety if I skipped a workout? It's one thing, and I was talking even to my husband about this yesterday. It's one thing to be like, oh, my day goes better when I move my body in the morning. Real life example for me. It does. I feel like I'm more able to feel creative, to handle my emotions, all of those things. But there are days when I can't do it, that's okay. Or there are days when I last week had a little bit of plantar fasciitis in my feet and I was like, I can't run. I can't do it. And that's okay, right? Be not feeling like, oh, I have to cut back or anything. Having a healthy relationship with movement is just as important as having a healthy relationship with food. And in terms of activity trackers, I broke up with my activity tracker long ago. And to me, it was the best thing that I did because I was controlled by it. Now, not everyone gets to that point. I definitely don't think fitness trackers are needed. If you are noticing that you are feeling like, I have to get up and walk, I feel guilty for not getting enough steps in, I would highly recommend taking a break from it. I like to use taking breaks from things because it feels a little bit less all or nothing. And from a, like, say don't press the big red button, we're going to press the big red button. You say you can't do something, you're going to be drawn to it even more. So viewing it as a vacation can be a good idea, and then just reassessing. But for some people, it can be super helpful if they like the reminders. I do think that, like, it really depends on your personality. Like I said, I have a very addictive personality just in general. It's just a trait that runs in my family. And I just know that's not something that serves me. So I don't think they're necessarily bad. Um, the I have to look into this again, but I was reading a study about, like, the long-term motivation of them doesn't, like, last. So I do think that it would be interesting to see if there is, like, a time period that they're, like, would be good to be used for to kind of, like, get someone to start moving. But I'll have to look that back up because I want to say it was like they ended up being less motivating in the end. And I think that kind of shows, like, okay, it's great to kind of, like, remind us and get us started, but it can easily spiral out of control. I'm going to look that up. Okay. Report back. Last story. This is just a fun one, you guys. So it says, here's when pumpkin spice is slated to arrive at Starbucks for 2023. I thought Theodore was going to jump down off the couch. It says, in 2023, Starbucks launched its first ever pumpkin spice beverages. Guys, that was 20 years ago. Wow. The pumpkin spice release date for 2023 has yet to be confirmed, but rumors are already flying around the internet. An Instagram user says, mark your calendars, the fall menu will drop on August 24th, claiming to have gotten the news from a Starbucks employee. There you go. Hopefully, cross your fingers. I'm not a big Starbucks pumpkin spice latte girly. I like to have, like, one a year, but, like, it's mostly for, like, the vibes, the nostalgic, like, I want to get one, all the hype. But it's definitely one of those things where I will try and I'm like, it's good, but I'm just not a pumpkin spice girly. Like, I typically like apple. Don't get me wrong, I like it because I'm thinking there are some things. Premier Protein always comes out with pumpkin spice around Halloween or around the fall. I do like that. It's not that I dislike, but ooh, it is thunderstorming. I hope you guys can't hear that, but I don't know. I'm not as obsessed with pumpkin spice as a lot of people are, but I figured I'd share with the class in case some of you are. I'm just not a big fall girly in general. I like summer. I like to sweat. Yeah, is that an unpopular opinion? I'm not a big fall fan. Sweater weather, PSL. Nah. And I do think this is also a good time just to talk about, it's okay to have those things that are, laden with sugar, have the whipped cream. My stance on not having food rules is stressing about those things is likely going to do more harm to your health, and food is meant to be enjoyed. And if we say we can't have those things, we're going to want them more and we're going to feel out of control. That combined with the guilt, you're likely going to eat more when you feel out of control and in a bingey way. combined with the guilt. If you're thinking from a health perspective, it's not going to be the best thing. And if you're also thinking from, a lot of people are like, well, if I drink that, I'm going to gain weight, then if you're falsely keeping your weight low, it might not be the weight that your body wants to be. But when we're at the weights that our bodies want to be, where they feel best, where they function optimally, we feel good, they can handle those influxes of things, right? And I always say focus on the stuff that makes you feel good for the most part. For me personally, would drinking a pumpkin spice latte every day, it probably wouldn't make me feel my best. Nothing necessarily wrong with it, but for me, like, I feel like they're so flavorful, and I don't necessarily feel my best after drinking a bunch of sugar. Would it taste good? Yes. But it's also thinking about how different foods are going to make you feel. Is it going to be more enjoyable if you have it every day, or when you allow yourself to enjoy it? Just some things to think about. So, that is the last one. It's okay to drink those liquid calories. It's not, I don't like the term guilty pleasure, because even when I talk about like what I watch Real Housewives, I don't like to use the term guilty pleasure at all. Drink your coffee how you want. If you want a pumpkin spice latte, go for it. There is nothing wrong with that. Enjoy it. Enjoy the season. So yeah, guys, I feel like this episode was all over the place. Like I said, my little crying fit before this kind of threw me for a loop, but I hope this was just kind of a fun episode for you guys and just kind of gave you something to listen to, kept you up to date on some of I didn't really feel like we had any like super juicy stories today, but I hope it was still interesting for you guys. I would love to hear what you think in the comments. If you are liking these No Food Rules news, I just started doing them recently. I have not brought them to podcast format. Right now, they're only available on YouTube. I have thought about also posting the audio to a podcast. So if you have preferences, I know a lot of you are watching right now on YouTube, so you're probably like, I like YouTube. But if you have any thoughts on that, let me know in the description or the comments, whatever. I obviously have not had my second cup of coffee either this morning. But with that, guys, thank you so much for tuning into another episode. I do enjoy doing these on Thursday mornings for you guys. We'll be back again next week. And if you haven't watched this week's YouTube video, I would recommend going back and watching that. It was a vlog that I did about food FOMO, fear of missing out, when you're like, oh my God, I don't know when I'm going to get this again. And you are like, so I got to eat it now, but I'm full and I'm going to be too full and I'm going to get a stomach ache. We talk about all of that. I went to a wedding and I kind of walk you through my experience. So I hope you guys have a lovely, lovely Thursday. I will see you back. The next time I'm going to see you is going to be next week on the No Food Rules news. And the following week, we're going to have a YouTube video, a full day of eating. I'm going to shoot a couple things for that this afternoon, but get excited for that. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel so you don't miss those. Those are your guys' favorite episodes or favorite videos. I'm getting so confused. Episode, video, whatever. But we got another one coming back. So I'm excited for that. I could talk to you guys all day. Go have a good rest of your day. I'll see you next week. See you later.